My name is Joe Conrad. I'm from the National Cancer Institute at the National Institutes of Health. And while the judges are deliberating, I just want to share some information about NIH that you may not be aware of from the standpoint of how we can help you develop your company further and how we can actually help each other as commercialization partners. Okay, so here we go. So when a company is looking for funding, specifically non-diluted funding, their first impression is to, thank you. Their first impression is to apply for grants. And one of the grants that people normally apply for at the NIH is the Small Business Innovative Research Program grant, or the SBIR grant. And this is a great program. One of the challenges with this program, however, is that it's a very competitive process. And so there's no guarantee that you will be selected for an SBIR. But that's one of the sources for grant funding that companies would usually seek out the NIH for. The grant funding that you get from the NIH is supplied by the extramural program at the NIH. And so NIH is divided into two parts, the extramural program and the intramural program. So 80% or so of the budget that we get from Congress goes to the extramural program, and this is the money going out of NIH in the form of grant funding. All right, the portion that I represent is the intramural side. So roughly about 10% or a little more of that budget from the NIH actually stays within the NIH and funds all of the research that goes on in the labs on our campus. Okay, so what we do here is to move that technology that's created in our labs out of our labs into the private sector, and that's what the intramural program does. So the intramural program doesn't have money. We don't give a company $1 million, but we could spend $1 million on that company's behalf. Okay, so that's what I'm here to talk about, because a lot of companies and individuals and entrepreneurs don't recognize or realize that they can use the NIH in that way. So we give access to technology instead of funding. All right, so you can license our technology from us, or you can collaborate with our investigators. And in that collaboration, what ends up happening is we give you indirect funding in the form of spending money on your behalf. So another thing that companies usually think about when they're trying to expand their pipelines or start a company around, it's like they need to source technologies. And so usually they go to universities. And the universities have their own technology transfer departments that help move their technology out of their labs into the private sector. So a lot of well-known universities, as we show here on the slide, have technologies that companies will actually go and license. Okay. The challenge with this, however, is that if you go to a university, universities by and large are profit centers. Okay, so they want to raise money for the university. So when they license their technologies basically come with high equity ownership requests. Okay, so that's one thing. So they'll take a piece of your company if you license the technology. If you collaborate with the technology development on a university side, that collaboration basically has overhead. All right, so basically you put $4 into a collaboration with the university. 3 of those dollars are going to go to keep the lights on, make sure that the janitorial staff is paid, and make sure that the stadium is upkept. Okay, so that's one of the challenges that you have to experience when you go to university. And most people know that that's the case, and they're willing to pay to play to do that. So the reality of the situation, though, is that if you're not looking at NIH as a source of technology, then you're missing out. Okay, so we have technology available for licensing and collaboration. We've had 15 product approvals in the last 7 years. That's the National Cancer Institute. We've generated over $10 billion worth of revenue for the licensing partners that we've actually worked with. And we have over 2,000 collaborations with companies worldwide. All right. The graphic that you see on the right hand of this slide basically is also a representation of the amount of VC money raised in specific drug treatment areas for various different diseases. Okay, and the point of this slide or this graphic is that NIH is actively developing technologies in all of these areas. So we have an abundance of technology, an abundance of areas that companies like yourselves can actually source from us. All right, so for those who don't know, NIH is the largest research institution in the world. We have over 2,800 technologies that are available for licensing and collaboration that cover each of the areas that are listed here. I'm not going to read them all if you can see them. All right, but the thing that you need to keep in mind is that we have favorable business terms associated with our license compared to universities or venture capital. Okay, so looking at some of these terms, our licenses. We just really want a fair return on the public dollar that created the technology. Okay, unlike universities, our technologies are paid for by the taxpayer. So we don't have to raise money to support the NIH. The federal government supports the NIH. So what we're trying to do is get a fair return on the public dollar that created the technology. The other benefit, in contrast to university sourcing of technology, is we don't take equity in your company. Okay, so that's a lot of money that you don't have to worry about in your burn rate when you're dealing with technology development. Okay, the other aspect is collaborations. We don't have any overhead. All right, so you put $4 into a collaboration, $4 goes to the collaboration. All right, you're not paying to keep the lights on. Taxpayers already done that. Okay, we have reasonable milestone payments. Again, fair return on the public dollar that went into creating the technology. We will not take your IP. All right, so if you bring IP to a collaboration on the NIH's side, that collaboration or that technology stays with you, your IP stays with you, our IP stays with us, and if we create something new, we jointly own it. Now, in a jointly owned situation, the company that works with us gets first right of refusal to license our ownership rights in the technology so that they can go and commercialize it, because we don't have the statutory authority or the capability to commercialize or, build out the technology that we develop in our labs. We have to partner with companies like yourselves to get our technologies to the patient populations that they were developed for. Okay, so those companies get the first right of refusal to move that technology into commercialization. So some of the benefits of actually working with the NIH and collaborating with us and partnering with us, licensing our technologies and working with our investigators. Right? If you license a technology, you can go and raise money on that. Okay? So these are some examples: Averaging Cargo, Recruitment Medical. They all license technology from us to develop it for commercialization and for patient populations that it was designed for. And in the process, they were able to raise money in various different series rounds to further develop and support that development. Okay? If you collaborate with us, collaboration and licensing leads to acquisition. So you can see Millennium Pharmaceuticals and Kite basically started their companies around NIH technology. Started with us. They de-risked the technology in their own development, developing it in their labs and their companies. And Big Pharma took notice and said, hey, research by acquisition, I will buy the company. Okay? And so, for example, Kite, which is one of our biggest acquisitions, was purchased by Gilead for $11 billion in 2017. Okay, and that technology that they started their company with basically came from the NIH. So this is a case study example of another company that worked with us. Since this is no digital health type of conference, I wanted to make sure we put some digital health in there. So we met an entrepreneur, the owner of this company, called Synology. This company developed the technology. It's a wearable sleep device. You wear it around your chest, and it collects the same type of data that you would get if you went to a sleep study at a sleep center. How many people have been at a sleep center or know someone who has? How many people, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many people love the experience? Okay. This entrepreneur hated the experience, okay? So he decided to create something that a person could wear in the privacy of their own home to provide the same type of data that you would get from a sleep center where you're hooked up to all these wires and you have these cameras looking at you, and it's really weird and creepy. You don't have that at home. The Plex device basically collects the same data, and he wanted to find a way to validate this technology in a clinical setting. So when he met us, he said, do you have access to a study that's looking at the effects of cancer on sleep. I have this device and I think it'd be great for that. So we didn't have what he was specifically looking for, but we partnered him with an investigator in the National Diabetes and Kidney Disease Institute at the NIH. And this investigator was looking at the effects of a specific drug for obesity diabetes on sleep. And so he had a study that required his patients to go to a sleep center, okay? The patients in that study went to the sleep center once. They did not want to go back. And so this investigator's study was in jeopardy of being closed down because of patient noncompliance. He found out about this device and he said, oh my gosh, if I can get my patients to wear this device, it may save my study. And so we put the two of them together. They ended up talking, and long story short, the investigator was able to receive 10 of these devices. The company had to pay to create those 10 devices that were used in the study, okay? But the company stopped there. The NIH covered the cost of the study. So you know how expensive a clinical study can be, right? So when you partner with the NIH on a clinical study, you may be required to pay for the drug or pay for the device or pay for some aspect of that study, but we cover the cost of the entire study beyond that, okay? So that's another benefit of working with the NIH, collaborating with it. You basically save a lot of money by working with us because you don't have to spend it in comparison to what you would get if you were at a university or some other institute. So this company basically took that information from that study and was able to raise money on it, okay? And from raising money on their experience with us, they were able to partner with the VA and the Department of Transportation because they require logs and records for the Department of Transportation, logs and records for truck drivers. They have to show a specific amount of sleep in their logs. And this helped to maintain that experience. They've also reformulated or redesigned the Plex into a ring. So instead of wearing it around your chest, now you can wear it on your finger. All right. So the amount of money that they were able to raise because of that experience with us helped them to redesign the technology and improve it. And they've also won several awards, and they have their own sleep center development type of sleep as a service, I think is what they call it. But in any case, that's something that you can experience when you're working with the NIH. So if you haven't thought about working with the NIH to expand your pipelines by licensing a technology, or if you're a new startup and you are trying to develop or create a company and you're looking for technologies to create your company around, I'm not saying don't go to a university, because universities have just as good technology as we do, okay? They have some very smart people and some very shiny objects, which is great, all right? But our system, we just have a different business model, all right? So if you want to save money, I'm just suggesting that you put us on your shopping list, all right? I just want to make sure that you're looking over there, but I want you to look over here too, because you might find something that's not over there that we have that could benefit you in many different ways. So that's all I have.